Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about all the books that I got during the month of May. I don't do huge book hauls. Most of my hauls are like 10-ish books, which is still a lot for like the normal consumer, but I'm past the phase of like just buying everything. That being said, still a few books to talk about. I also have 2 arcs that I want to talk about. As usual, most of these books were bought either at a Goodwill or a secondhand bookstore. Starting with the arcs, the first book I have is Summer Suns by Mandelo. This is a queer horror novel. I believe this comes out September 28th of this year. So in this book we follow our main character Andrew. Andrew's best friend Eddie goes off to grad school, and about 6 months after Eddie goes off to grad school he commits suicide, and our main character is left with the remnants of these 6 months that his best friend was off to grad school. I believe there's also some gothic element to this novel, and there's also some sort of like fast car, like speed racing part of the story. That's all I pretty much know. I think I read somewhere that this kind of had like southern gothic vibes, as well as maybe the story also takes place in the Appalachian part of the United States. I heard this, I'm not sure if it's true, haven't read it yet. I have been wanting to read more horror, and the fact that it's also like queer horror sounds great. Along with the like suicide mention, I think drug use is also some part of the story, so keep that in mind if these particular triggers apply to you. And the other arc that I requested was Sword Stone Table. This is a short story collection from a few authors. These are supposed to be inclusive, like race bent, gender bent, LGBT stories that are inspired by like King Arthur, Knights of the Round Table, Camelot, that kind of thing. The reason why I requested it was because it had a short story from Roshani Chakshi and Sylvia Moreno Garcia. I've read from both of these authors and I've enjoyed their work before, so that's why I requested it. I do also see some other familiar names in the like author list, and this is supposed to come out July 13th. So one of the books I got this month I already read, and that is The Exiled Queen by Cinda Williams Chima. This is a YA fantasy series that I'm really like into right now. This is like the series that I'm like most like has my attention. Like if I have a copy of the next book in the series, I will pick that up first before anything else, which I obviously did. This is very heavy on like political intrigue. So in the first book we follow 2 characters named Han and Riza. I always want to say Han and Leah, but it's Han and Riza. Han is a kind of like thief character, and at the beginning of the first book he steals this amulet that belongs to this wizard, and amulets in this world are what like gives wizards like their power, or more so like it helps them like hone their powers to like get better at using them. And what Han doesn't know is that this particular amulet has a lot of historical significance, and this amulet also has kind of like a bloody kind of history along with it. He didn't know that before stealing it, but he's stuck with it now. And then we follow another character named Riza, who is the crown princess of her queendom. So at the beginning of Riza's story, her mother's really pushing her to like marriage, even though she's only turning 16. Queens in her country don't have kings, it's a queendom. The right to rule goes through women, so when her mother's pushing her to marry, it's more of like a consort relationship. Her mother has a relationship with this man, but he's not king. That's kind of how it works in her country, and her mother's kind of pushing her to that direction. Riza doesn't want to do that yet. She knows eventually she has to, but she's only 16 and she's like, she wants other things in life at this moment. And that's pretty much where the story starts. Again, political intrigue, so the story kind of develops as you read on. I'll talk about this more in my wrap up, but something that I really enjoy about this series is that YA books tend to be very character centric in terms of like the story, and then a lot of adult fantasies tend to look at the world at large, if that kind of makes sense. I really enjoy that this YA series kind of focuses not only on our characters but on the things that are happening around our characters that we also kind of have to like keep in mind, if that makes sense. Again, I'll go into detail in my wrap up, but I really enjoy this series. So the next book I got from my Goodwill was The Case of the Missing Marquess. This is the first book in the Enola Holmes series. Some of you might know that this was already adapted into a Netflix film, which I watched. I thought the film was okay. I only really watched because of Hot Sherlock Holmes, played by Henry Cavill, but this was like $2. I enjoyed the story enough, and you probably know if you've watched my other videos, I really enjoy like Sherlock Holmes reimaginings and retellings, specifically from a more like feminine point of view. But yeah, this story follows Sherlock Holmes's younger sister, Enola. I want to say she's like of like middle grade age, so the books probably have that middle grade audience. Another book that I got at my Goodwill was In the Shadow of Blackbirds. So the reason why I picked this up was, well, there's two reasons. One, because whenever I go through my library through Libby, I always see this in the horror section, and I never pick it up because it's on audio, and I prefer to listen, or I prefer to read horror instead of listening to it. And the second reason I picked it up was because it had a lot of similar elements to another series that I really enjoy, The Diviners. I believe this book takes place in 1918, so we are in the middle of World War I. We are also in the middle of the influenza epidemic, and at the same time there's this like huge spiritualism craze that's like very popular in the States as well as England. That's pretty much all I really know, but I really like all those elements meshed together. I know we follow a character that doesn't really like believe in this spiritualism fad, I guess, but something happens and she's kind of like now questioning the existence of the supernatural, the paranormal. That's pretty much all I really know. So this is Banewreaker, the first book in a series. I picked this up because it's written by Jacqueline, Carey, who is the author of that Cushiel's Dart, that Cushiel series that's like really popular and like known for being like very sex positive. So my library and my used bookstore don't have any of those books, so I picked up something else from her. So this world was created by these things called shapers. They shaped the world as it is. There were 7 in total, and one of these shapers started acting a little bit sus, started doing things that the other shapers didn't agree on. So there's this little kind of war or battle, I'm not really sure, and they kind of went different ways. The one shaper that was acting a little bit sus lives in this part of the world, and the other 6 live on that part of the world. And that one shaper who went off on his own, his name is Sartoris, and he's been basically accumulating power for about 1,000 years or more. And there's this prophecy that says that upon his death the world would be like redeemed or reborn, something along those lines. And to prevent this prophecy from coming true, Sartoris asked his commander general of his army to go kidnap this woman who is in some part of an alliance against Sartoris to like bring him down. I believe this commander general was once human, but since he's been working for this god shaper, he's kind of like lost his humanity. His like soul is like tarnished or whatever. But I think he kind of falls in love or starts following or starts to remember his humanity when he is sent to go capture this woman. That's pretty much all I really know. Sounds like it's a lot of political intrigue. Sounds like there's going to be a bit of a romance. I am assuming that the romance is going to be a little more darker than like lighthearted, and that's fine with me, because I think I'm starting to realize I enjoy a romance that's a little more tense as opposed to like uplifting, I guess. That's just personal for me. It might not be for you. So if you're like uncomfortable with this kind of like kidnapper element, no hard feelings, this might not be for you. It's not something that bothers me. I also picked up Renegades by Marissa Meyer. This series did its rounds on BookTube a few years ago, and I do think there's quite a bit of hype around it. This is a sci-fi story about superheroes. If I remember what was spoken about this series, I think we have like 2 groups of people with superhuman abilities. One of these groups is seen as like the superhero, heroic, almost like Justice League-esque organization, and then we have another group that are more so rebels and are seen as kind of like evil. And I also know that there's some sort of like Romeo and Juliet element, star-crossed lovers thing between people that are part of these 2 different factions. I'm hoping that this series is a little more gritty and it's like take on superheroes. I am personally over like that kind of early phase 1 of like Marvel superhero movies where they were very much like let's save the world and like crack jokes at the same time. I'm pretty sure Marvel's over that as well. They seem to be like branching onto different genres and approaches to their superhero movies, and I'm hoping that this is also like not just like happy-go-lucky like smile type of story. I don't actually read a lot of books about superheroes, though I did used to read a lot of comics when I was studying in university. So this next book may not be talked about a lot on BookTube or Bookstagram or wherever, but it is pretty popular and well known, and that is The Sparrow by Mary Doria Russel. So this is kind of like a first contact story where Earth has discovered the existence of a planet with its own like alien life forms, and I'm not sure if like a world organization has decided to send up like a crew to have that first contact, or these people decided to do it on their own. Either way, we have a group of people who go off to this planet to have that first interaction, that first contact. So you have your usual characters that are sent up, like an astronomer, a computer expert, a physician, people like that. But then you also have a group of like Jesuit priests that are also sent up, which is not who I would expect would be sent to go to another planet. I'm personally not a very religious person, but I do like reading from the point of view of like a religious person in sci-fi or fantasy. This is a modern classic at this point, so I'm sure I'll enjoy at least some aspects of this book, and I think it is a duology as well. I've never heard anyone talk about this next book. So here I have Revenger by Alastair Reynolds. So this is giving me like pirate swashbuckling nautical fantasy vibes, but like make it sci-fi. So we follow two characters that have been hired or been accepted to work on this spaceship that is essentially like pirates, but like in space. They like go to planets and they like harvest resources, or they find treasure, whatever form that treasure takes. And that's pretty much all I know. I'm assuming this is gonna be a really like fast-paced, like exciting read. Pirates in Space is like, that's all I need to know. I also got a copy of The Bone Witch by Ren Chupeco. I've been wanting to read from Ren Chupeco for a long time. I believe this is a story that really got them a lot of hype. So we follow our main character, who is from a family of witches, but she is a bone witch. She is a necromancer. I don't think anyone else in her family is. Necromancers aren't really viewed in a positive light. So I think at some point our main character kind of leaves their homeland and goes off to study with a older necromancer. And I believe at the same time there's some sort of war brewing in their kingdom. That's pretty much all I know. It's been a while since I've read from a necromancer character, so I'm excited about that. And the next and final book is The Queens of Venice Lear by Tessa Graton. This is a retelling of Shakespeare's King Lear. So when people talk about this book, they don't really give like that deep of a summary, so I guess it's like one of those types of stories. But what I have gathered is that the king has been wanting to abdicate his throne, and he's not sure which daughter to give it to. He has 3 daughters, and I'm not sure if there's going to be some sort of competition element, or through like the political moves of this kingdom, the girls have to prove that they are the most like worthy to rule after him. Please let me know if you've read any of these, if you've never heard of any of these but now you're interested. I'd just like to hear anything you have to say in the comments down below. I will link all my social medias down below, as well as some much more important links. Feel free to like, comment, or subscribe, or do neither. It's like all chill with me. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.